He came out of the closet. I saw he was holding a large carving knife in his hand. I studied his half-dead appearance, face, and dashed to the bathroom, locking the door. In myself, I pondered contacting the cops, but I decided against it. Didn't. I waited until I heard him return to his previous position. I dashed to my room from the couch. The door was shut. I had no idea how much it hurts when you have a relative, especially a best friend. So this video contains best friend horror stories and scary stories with roommates of real people's life experience. Jack, my former best buddy, had a variety of problems, if you can call them that. He was suffering from sleeplessness. He had a lot of late nights. He suffers from nightmares and is depressed. I'm sure he has other personal matters to deal with that he isn't really willing to discuss. All I know is that he drinks a lot of alcohol, medication. He and his roommate were having a conversation one day. Major problems that are worse than normal. Jack contacted me, upset, and said they've just had a shouting match with each other and it was nearly physical. And I needed a place to stay for a few of nights. I assured him that it was not an issue and that he could sleep for a few hours. I sat on the couch in my apartment. Nights, when he came, I attempted to persuade him to do anything. Additional information about the struggle. He didn't say why it happened. For example, anything to me. If he didn't, I appreciated that. Do you wish to reveal such personal information? I wasn't going to pursue him anymore on the subject. He threw down his backpack, which was stuffed with garments, at one of the living room's corners. He merely sat in front of the TV and did nothing. For the most part, I played Call of Duty on my Xbox throughout the day and at night. I lingered with him for a while, but I had to go. I have my own responsibilities to attend to. Jack was passed out when I arrived home, under a blanket on the couch. I walked by him softly and prepared for what was to come. I awoke in my bed, feeling strange. I'm terribly thirsty, and the water bottle I have is empty. The space adjacent to my bed was unoccupied. As a result, I moved through the living room silently, room leading to the kitchen. I couldn't help but smile as I walked by the couch. However, you'll note that Jack isn't on it. His backpack remained in the corner of the room. He didn't leave the room, though. In any case, he may have dashed to the restroom. I didn't search the area for him. I returned to my room and locked the door. Crack a window. I hadn't seen you in a long time. Jack was in the restroom and I didn't hear him leave. Nonetheless, or simply resuming your previous position on the couch, to be precise. So I was going to stand up and have another look, only because I was looking for him. Concerned, however, as soon as I awoke, I began to hear sounds of ticking or clicking. I scurried around like a mouse. The dim light. I just noticed Jack after that. I'm in the corner of my room, staring at the ceiling. I let out a sigh, arms flat at his sides, screamed and leapt. To put it gently, I was taken aback. Yes, even in this dim light, I was able to see. It was Jack, I realized. I tossed my pillow at him and cried, "What are you doing? What the hell are you doing?" He trembled, and he came to a halt. The ticking noises then left my room. In such a rigid, scary manner, I heard him almost collapsing onto the floor. I stepped out of the couch and entered the living room to make an attempt to communicate with him. When he didn't respond, I figured he must have been busy. I've been sleeping-walking. I inquired about it the next morning, and he said he couldn't recall. I asked him whether he had a tendency to do any of it. Sleepwalk. He said no, or at least that he wasn't interested, being conscious of. However, the rest of the day was pleasant. We spoke and hung around in the regular way for a time in the living room. After that, I had to go out and do some running. He'd be spending another night to run errands at my house. I awoke in the middle of the night once more. I wasn't awake in the middle of the night this time. Thirsty, so I'm not sure what jolted me awake, but for the sake of curiosity, I stood up to see if Jason was around. He wasn't on the couch. I didn't call Jack's name Lovely again, loud. He was nowhere to be seen in the bathroom or the kitchen. He didn't appear to be in my room either. I crawled back into bed and gave it another shot. Nothing came through when he texted his phone. As a result, it appeared to be off. I actually did yell his name one more time, loud, and then there was this frightening noise, sound of muffled speech. I went inside the closet and looked for it, coming from, and I was able to see through the opening of 6 inches. Jack's face may be seen peering through the cracks in the darkness. His hands were over his lips as he walked in the door. I screamed at him at full intensity to attract his attention. He didn't listen when I told him to get out of my closet. He'd have to be sleepwalking once more. I went there, to the closet, to completely open it. I grabbed his arm and yanked it away from him. But when I did that, he came out of the closet. I saw he was holding a large carving knife in his hand. I studied his half-dead appearance, face, and dashed to the bathroom, locking the door. In myself, I pondered contacting the cops, but I decided against it. Didn't. I waited until I heard him return to his previous position. I dashed to my room from the couch. The door was shut. I had no idea how sleepwalking worked. May reach a point where he'd be in danger, obtaining weapons. It didn't feel appropriate to be lying in my bed at that hour. I texted his roommate at 3 a.m., describing what had just occurred, and inquiring as to what transpired between a pair of them. I didn't hear back from him until the next morning. I got 3 long DMS from him when I woke up. Roommate, in a nutshell. He told me that Jack is a sicko in need of assistance. He also stated that Jack entered his room. He was there the last night with a knife and was standing at his bed's foot before tackling him to the ground. Jack claimed to be him. He said he was sleepwalking, but his roommate was not. It's true. This just added to the dread of the situation, since Jack stated that he doesn't like it. Sleepwalk. I asked Jack if he was aware of it or not, to depart that day because to what had happened, currently taking place. He did, and I believe he returned to his room, mother's home. Jack and I are still friends on Facebook, but I kind of faded things on social media following that. He came out of it. I'm still not sure what to think of him, or the fact that he had a knife with him. Enters the rooms of more than one person in the house in the wee hours of the morning. Hi guys, before you keep watching the video, if you want to send a personal true horror story of yours, please send it to me on my email, and I will contact you for sure. Also, don't forget to keep watching your video. However, I don't have too many friends. I used to glance at this till a few days ago. For a while, I had Mike as my best buddy. He was a student in one of my college classes when I first met him. We got along since we were usually together, cheated on tests, and assisted each other to find solutions to our problems, assignments for homework. We soon began to hang out. I would sooner or later, outside of class, later on, begin telling him a lot of things, intimate information that I haven't shared with many other individuals, simply because that was where I felt most at ease. I didn't see him as a threat when I was with him. Exceptional quality, authentic individual. He was simply someone I knew. For me, there was a glimmer of hope. There was this one night when I didn't have anything to do. I contacted him about my ideas, and he suggested we went to one of the town's bars. I drove the two of us there since I was in a hurry. I had no intention of becoming too tipsy. However, for whatever reason, he stayed up late last night, opted to spend the darkness, shot after shot of a mixed cocktail. Following a mixed drink, I drank a few of drinks that caused me to cut myself off in order for me to be able to drive. Mike was inebriated to the point of insanity, contacting random girls and seeing what they're like. Items that were creating a lot of trouble. To make me cringe, I had to apologize to these people at one time, 2 young ladies, for him, and attempted to persuade them to marry him. In the brightness of it, the night, however, was not going well. I wanted it to be the way I wanted it to be. So, a shiver. I had a laid-back night out with a friend. Made it difficult, so I dragged him out of the bar and sat with him. I put him in my car and drove us back to his house, apartment. I'd never been inside of his house before. This was the first time I rented an apartment. I led him inside and placed him on the couch, his sofa, where he appeared to be quickly at ease, simply pass out and crash. He let go of his phone and walked away, but he didn't flinch as he fell to the ground. So, he was out, his phone was turned on, and, nonetheless, it is unlocked. I've always wondered what the heck was going on. Mike even did it for work, despite the fact that he was unemployed. Always seemed to be up for a splurge. However, work was never discussed. In an ideal world, I would not have done what I did. Nonetheless, I took his phone and dialed his number, started browsing through his photos on his computer. I'm not sure what I was expecting, to be honest. I was simply being a jerk, nefarious snoop. However, I was doing it since I do it frequently. Mike seemed a little shady to me, and was concealing some information. His camera roll is overflowing with nonsense such this, screenshots from several websites. I went since I had received text and a slew of selfies to the section dedicated to albums. Then came upon this dubious CD titled Girls. I expected to discover nudes or something like when I opened it, photos of pornography or anything. No, what I discovered and was far worse. There were photos of young women who were tethered, access to a bed. The women were in a lot of the photos, clearly upset and sobbing. I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but the images were upsetting. I assumed they were from the military initially. I used the internet, but I made a mental note of the blue bedsheets. I entered Mike's room and turned on the light. I was taken aback when I noticed the blue bed cover. I shook my head, disgusted, and moved on. I had no notion how to do it since I had no concept what I was doing. I forwarded a few of the photos to. I then removed the text from his phone. Next, I tossed the phone on the floor to him and walked away. He texted me the next day, saying, "I know you. We need to chat now." So I walked into my room. He then asked if you had seen any. They were merely pretending in the images. I didn't pay attention to him. I had no idea how he knew. I did see the photos, though I'm not sure how he knew I was there. His personal space. He came to my door the next night and 30 times I rang the ring. I disregarded it. And when I was awakened hours later, it was still there, attempting to sleep. My window was pelted with rocks, and I was forced to flee. Mike was calling up to me from outside. I heard him trying to open the door a few seconds later, one of the windows in my house. That's when I took out my phone and dialed. I shouted at him and told him to just do it. I'd be calling the cops if you didn't leave me alone. Cops? He didn't text or phone me after that. So I hung up. I'm back. Those 2 photos are still on my computer. I'm on the phone, and I'm not sure what I should do. I'm not sure what I should do or how I should go about it. If he knows I saw those photos, he'll be furious. I'm not sure whether he'll go after me if I don't do something. He has the opportunity to do so, or if he's going to move out. But at the very least, this very second, I'm a little concerned about my safety. I used to hang out with a girl named Jessica for over 5 years. We've been going since high school to college together and shared a dorm. We were in our junior year of high school. We moved out of the dorms in college and into an off-campus residence hall. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, and we were the only ones living there. Sarah, a friend of ours, was our 3rd roommate. We didn't get along as well with Sarah, but we still got along. I had no issues with her, actually. The 3 of us would go out together. I just had more fun on weekends when we were all together. But that reveal everything to your best friend vibe, if you know what I'm talking about. It's with Jessica. It was the spring semester, and spring break had arrived, was nearing, and we were making preparations. We'd be coming home in a few days. Sarah and I had intended to leave. Jessica was supposed to be there on the same day. She insisted on staying an extra day. She needed to finish up one last shift at her occupation, so the day arrived when Sarah and I had to leave. I said my goodbyes to Jessica, despite the fact that I would most likely be seeing the next day at home with her. I got on the road and left. But have you ever, when you forget something, it's important to remember it. It hits you like a ton of bricks. That's what happened to me while I was on the road, the highway, in a panic. I pulled over to the side of the road. I hurriedly searched my baggage for my laptop. I also double-checked my backpack, realizing that I had forgotten something. I'd forgotten about it. I had already driven for half an hour. Now I had to return just to grab my things. Laptop. I had to. As much as I didn't want to, I couldn't go nearly 2 weeks without my phone. Computer. So, after a half-hour trip back to the hotel, the beginning of the apartment, I let myself in when I returned. Jessica was summoned, and she was ready to tell her what had happened. I was a complete moron. She didn't return my call, so I didn't appear to have taken up residence at the unit, despite the fact that her door was wide open. Normally, it was closed. I used to miss her, especially when she wasn't at home. I looked around my room for my laptop. I looked everywhere but couldn't find it. I approached Jessica's doorway with curiosity and gazed about in her room. My laptop was open, and there it was, her mattress. Why didn't she make a phone call while sitting next to her laptop, or send me a text? When I went to get it, I noticed my laptop was written in. She gained access to my account in some way, And then, she was aware of my password. I changed my focus to her laptop. It just got worse from there. There was an open folder with a collection of images. Photographs of me are among the most popular. I discovered some scary images, photos of me dozing off on the couch, following a night of inebriation, and photos of me in a towel, either inside or outside. Whether it's in my room or the bathroom, my heart was beating. So I turned off my computer, started looking through her room. I looked through her closet in particular and discovered a number of my possessions. I'll largely be selling clothing, but I'll also be selling other items that I won't be selling. It's worth mentioning because it's upsetting. Embarrassing. I grabbed everything I could find and ran. I stormed out, locked the door to my room, and the apartment was abandoned. I didn't contact Jessica. Instead, I dialed my parents' number. I got back in my car as soon as I could. They couldn't find any words to express themselves, even give me advice because this was so difficult for me. Erroneous. I saw Jessica by the time I came home. I was blocked on everything. I figured she had blocked my Instagram snap. Number 2, but I've never attempted to contact them. Her once more. By the time I returned to my flat, it had been a long day. All of her belongings were gone within a week and a half. Was no longer in the unit. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. She was out with our group for a year, mutual friends, and we happened to run into each other. She didn't even bother to glance at me. I couldn't even have the guts to say anything, confront me on the subject. The person I considered to be my best friend, 6-year-old pal, was a wicked, perverted stalker who kept filthy things, images of me. This resulted in my possessions being stolen. As well, to bring to light an incident that occurred in the apartment's first month. After a night of drinking, I was inebriated. I awoke immediately after falling asleep. I remembered something after hearing a noise in my closet. I'm sitting up, rubbing my eyes, and taking a look around. All around the place, I was under the impression that I had seen and heard someone in the area. Closet. I was so terrified that I dashed to Sarah's house, screamed in her room because her room was on fire. By the time she went to check the clock, she was getting closer. Share a room with me. Jessica's closet was apparently empty. I'd never gotten out of bed to come check on the house. Commotion. Now that she was in, it made sense to me. That night in my closet, when I think about it, I get sick to my stomach. All of the things she could have